What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chaotic Minds. As always, it is Winged.
And a midget.
And congratulations to us. We've made it to one of the best times of the year. It is officially spooky season.
Yes.
And as it is spooky season, for those who might be new to joining, we have a tradition of doing a scary episode,
Quote unquote.
scary, at the end of the month.
Whether it's supernatural, ghost story,
We've done supernatural stories. We've done ghost stories. We've done
haunted places.
Haunted places, stuff like that. We've done conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
We have something. We're working on something special for y'all.
Hopefully it'll come to fruition.
Yeah.
If we can find enough. If not, we might have some filler stories.
Yeah. But that's going to take the place of our typical Reddit stories at the end of the month. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be the last Saturday. It's going to be out the last Saturday of the month.
October.
I'm super excited. I have an idea for a couple of different things to look up for it. Getting the history. There's one I definitely do want to talk about.
Okay.
Just because.
Let's not spoil it here. We can discuss it later.
The reason why I bring it up is I want to talk about it because it is one of the weirdest and saddest ones that I've found. So
yeah,
I'll talk to you about. We'll talk afterwards.
Okay.
But as for this episode, with everything weird going on in the sky and everything, the destruction and all that's happened down south, we decided that this episode today is going to be a little more up in the air.
Weather-based.
Whether it's
phenomena.
A play on words or whatever. It's, you know what, I like to play on words. It's a play on words. We're doing a space and weather episode.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I do want to talk about, because it's weird, and the reason why it's weird is because this is never, at least that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Something like this hasn't ever happened before. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event that we are currently going through.
Okay, I gotcha. I know what we're talking about.
And that once-in-a-lifetime event is we, for a short time now, are going to have a second moon.
Yep. Which I had a question for you earlier. If it's so small, how can it be considered a moon?
Well, here's the reason. So this is coming from space.com.
Reliable source.
Yep. And, it says this month Earth will grab itself a second moon in the form of the tiny asteroid 2024 PT5. Unlike the moon, Earth's primary companion, which has accompanied our planet for about 4 billion years, give or take, this new mini-moon will stick around for just 2 months before it heads back to its home in an asteroid belt trailing our planet and orbiting the sun. A team of scientists well-versed in the study of so-called mini-moon events identified the forthcoming gravitational capture event. They spotted the particular dynamic properties of 2024 PT5. I am just going to call it PT5 from now on because saying that whole thing is stupid. As they routinely monitored newly discovered objects for potentially interesting behavior. The object is going to pay us a visit.
AKA, they want to know if it's going to crash into us.
Yeah. The object that is going to pay us a visit belongs to the Arjuna asteroid belt, a secondary asteroid belt made of space rocks that follow orbits very similar to that of Earth at an average distance to the sun of about 93 million miles, 150 million kilometers. For those who, use the metric
How close
system.
are we to the sun?
That's a good question.
Let me look that up real quick.
I used to know it like off the top of my hand. Or top of my head. Research lead authored in Universidad Complutense de Madrid, Professor Carlos de la Fuente Marcos told Space.com, objects in the Arjuna asteroid belt are part of the near-Earth or object population of asteroids and comets. Marcos,
okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
But how close did you say that asteroid belt was?
It says an average distance to the sun of about 93 million miles or 150 million kilometers.
That's funny because we're 92.945 million miles to the sun, distance from the sun. So we're about the same distance.
Yep.
So is this the one between Earth and Mars?
No, there isn't an asteroid belt between Earth and Mars.
Or is it Mars and Jupiter?
It would be Mars and Jupiter.
Yeah.
However, that's because Mars is further away.
Yeah.
That would increase the distance.
Yeah, but that's what I thought was weird. Okay,
No.
Anyway, continue.
Marcos explained that some of these objects in the asteroid belt can approach Earth at a close range of about 2.8 million miles, or 4.5 million kilometers, and at low velocities of around 2,200 miles per hour, or 3,540 kilometers per hour.
That's low velocity?
Yeah. Well, compared to everything else, I mean, look at Halley's Comet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hail Bob.
Under these conditions, the geocentric energy of the object may grow negative, and the object may become a temporary moon of Earth. This particular object will undergo this process starting next week. This was back in September. And for about 2 months, it will not follow a full orbit around Earth. You may say that if a true satellite is like a customer buying goods inside a store, objects like PT5 are window shoppers. So it's gonna go ahead and get close, and the reason why they call it a moon, a mini moon, is because it does have a slight orbit around the Earth. But because of its size, it has the ability to escape Earth's gravitational pull due to larger objects around us in the solar system, i.e. the sun.
The actual moon.
Jupiter, which surprisingly still does have a pull on Earth.
Yep.
Because of how massive it is. But that will cause everything to, like, smaller objects to escape our gravitational pull. Mini-moon events come in 2 flavors. The first are long episodes, where the asteroid completes 1 or more revolutions around our planet, with these gravitational engagements lasting 1 or more years. The second type of episodes are short engagements in which the small body does not complete 1 full revolution. These temporary captures can last just days, weeks, or even a few months. Marcos explained that in order to become a mini-moon, the incoming body has to approach Earth at a close range of about 2.8 million miles, 4.5 million kilometers, and slowly at about 2,200 miles per hour, or 3,540 kilometers per hour. Already read this part. So, under these conditions, the geocentric energy can become negative and the object becomes temporarily bound to Earth, he continued. So far, science has only identified 2 objects subjected to long captures: 2006 RH120 and 2020 CD3. There are 3 examples published of short captures: 1991 VG, 2022 NX1, and 2024 PT5, the one that we currently have. But there are several others unpublished. Short mini-moon events like this forthcoming one, in which the small body, in this case an asteroid, acquires negative geocentric energy for a few weeks or a few months, are relatively frequent, with several events happening per decade. Long capture episodes, on the other hand, are rare, with Earth experiencing one around every 10 to 20 years. The cause of the ejection of these objects from around Earth are gravitational disturbances caused by the sun. Once PT-5 has fulfilled its role as a mini-moon, it will return to a sun-centered orbit, remaining part of the asteroid belt. Unfortunately, during its occupation around Earth, PT-5 won't be visible to the vast majority of skywatchers. The object is too small and dim for typical amateur telescopes and binoculars. However, the object is well within the brightness range of typical telescopes used by professional astronomers, Marco said. A telescope with a diameter of at least 30 inches plus a CCD or CMOS detector are needed to observe this object. A 30 inches telescope and a human eye behind it will not be enough. So yeah, we have a mini moon at the moment. Because of its slow orbit, it is not going to stick around. And my previous statement, after reading through the article, because I guess I forgot of it being a once-in-a-lifetime event, is incorrect, and I apologize.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because it's going to be small enough to escape orbit, so it's not going to be considered one of the longer ones. But at the same time, we're still not going to be able to see it with a naked eye. Granted, it is smaller and it is millions of miles away, whereas our actual moon is not millions of miles away. It's not millions. It's not as far as people
I will look this up, actually.
But I think it's strange that we're not going to be able to see it, and yet, see, told you so.
So
Just over 250,000 miles away.
yeah, 238,855 miles, or 384,400 kilometers from the Earth and the Moon.
See, like I said, it's small enough to escape our gravitational pull. And it's small enough, like I said, to escape. But you would think that something that is going to stick around for a month or two, we might be able to see with the naked eye. But I guess because it's so far away and it's so small, it's going to be hard to see. But it'd still be kind of a cool thing to see. If we had a nice enough telescope, or if we had a decent telescope at least, that would be something cool to see.
So, in comparison, PT-5 is 2.6 miles away.
2.6 miles?
Sorry, 2.6 million miles.
Okay.
I apologize.
I was like, that's a little too close for comfort.
So it's a little bit further than the moon. By comparison, Mars is about 33 million miles away from us.
Which is funny because we can see Mars with the naked eye during certain parts of
Mars
the year.
is also a planet and reflects light. The asteroid is an asteroid, so it's considerably smaller, and it doesn't have the reflectiveness that the moon or Mars or even Venus has.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why. But yeah, we technically have a mini moon orbiting us right now. Thankfully, it's orbiting us and not, on a direct impact. You know, what was that, Bruce Willis?
Armageddon?
Yeah, not like an Armageddon situation here going on.
Or even Deep Impact.
Never seen that movie.
Deep Impact, there was a giant asteroid the size of Mount Everest, and it was on a direct collision course, and they basically planted nukes, didn't work, and then they took the last remaining nukes, armed them, and drove straight into the center of the crevice, the Grand Canyon of the asteroid, and knocked the biggest chunk off course to where it wasn't going to hit, but the smaller piece was still the size of Rhode Island, and it hit and caused a tidal wave that was over 1,000 feet high and washed so far inland it actually reached like Ohio and the Colorado River and all that stuff. So yeah.
So what's Armageddon?
Armageddon,
It's the same movie, just two different titles.
It's not the same movie, two different titles. It's
What happened with Armageddon?
Armageddon, they actually obliterated the whole thing, so not a piece. It came like pieces no larger than a suitcase came raining down on the earth. This one, it was still the size of Rhode Island or the size of Texas. I can't remember.
Well,
anyway,
so
whatever.
we're gonna move on to the next one.
Those
I
are
am gonna touch
fake
back
movies.
in with this, because this has got me curious. So, let's talk about your story real quick.
Okay, so my story, I found a couple of different articles, and so I want to read them both and kind of go through, read both of them in parts because they're both saying the same thing, but the other article has some additional comments that were made that are hitting, and it's just like I don't remember. So anyway, it says Hurricane Helene satellite images show major devastation in North Carolina as death toll continues to rise. A week after Hurricane Helene tore through the U.S. Southeast and devastated western North Carolina with heavy rains and severe flooding, satellite images are showing the extent of the damage. Officials have previously said that hundreds of roads in western North Carolina have been inaccessible because of the storm's effects, hindering rescue efforts. Residents reported seeing water as high as the roofs of some homes. At least 225 people have been confirmed dead, and officials say they expect the death toll to continue to rise as recovery efforts continue. A spokesperson for the police department of Asheville, North Carolina, told CBS News in an email late Friday that it's actively working 75 cases of missing persons. The spokesperson disclosed that there had been a total of 350 persons reported missing since Helene struck, but 270 of those have been located, which is great, but we still have more work to do. Satellite images show washed out streets and buildings. One image shows mud and debris near Old Fort Elementary School in Old Fort, North Carolina. Old Fort is one of the hardest hit areas. Cars, homes, and more were pushed along by strong floodwaters. Power, water, and other essential services are still yet to be fully restored. So that's part one. That's one of the articles. It goes on, but it starts talking about different things. And this other one says, Hurricane Helene, now one of the deadliest storms to hit the U.S. this century. Hurricane Helene's death toll surpassed 200 people on Thursday as rescue crews searched for survivors 1 week after the major storm made landfall in Florida and brought flooding rains across the U.S. Southeast. The big picture. This is from Axios, by the way, which is another sort of land weather news thing. It says the big picture. The at least 215 deaths confirmed so far make the storm the third deadliest of the 21st century after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, 1,392 deaths. See, that's the part of the information I was forgetting. And Hurricane Maria in 2017, at least 2,975 deaths. The only other hurricane deadlier than Helene over the past 60 years was Camille. The 1969 storm shared similarities with Hurricane Helene in that the majority of Camille's 259 U.S. deaths came from flash flooding across the Appalachians in Virginia, following a Category 5 landfall that was itself catastrophic. These numbers include both direct and indirect deaths. A study this week found hurricanes were linked to thousands of deaths over the 15 years following the event. So people think that, okay, hurricane's coming in, gonna kick our ass, and we're gonna be okay in a week. No, what people seem to fail to understand, this is coming from me on the medical side of things, is that catastrophic events like this, whether it's the weather or other like a hurricane or other natural disasters like tornadoes, earthquakes, and what have you, or terrorist attacks like 9/11 and other Oklahoma City bombing, just to name a couple that in the U.S. have impacted life and death. What they don't seem to realize, and what shows, even TV shows now, are starting to point out, is that people that are coming in with the search efforts, people that lived through it, people that lost loved ones through it, all that are being impacted decades later. 9/11 survivors are dying of cancers that were caused directly by the events of 9/11. First responders especially are dying of lung cancers because these buildings are so old and with asbestos, and like you hear about it all the time with shipyard workers and mesothelioma.
Yeah.
What people fail to realize is that storms like this have a lasting impact on the people that are involved, being they are first responders or people that are living in it. And this is going to continue to show problems and continue to show deaths. I mean, look at Katrina. Look at Hurricane Katrina. How many people have died since Katrina happened because of some germ that they picked up in the floodwaters?
Or fungus.
The fungus, like the things that they've picked up. And people don't understand that, yeah, you've survived a devastating, catastrophic event. And that's all well and good. And yeah, you should try to get back to as normal as possible for you. But don't ignore health issues that pop up 5 years down the line because, oh, that can't be related. No, people don't understand and don't seem to like get it through their thick skulls sometimes that these events will continue to show their ugly faces years down the line.
Oh yeah.
And that's why they're calling this one of the deadliest hurricanes in the last 60 years. Because it is number 3 on that scale. And the deadliest one wasn't even Katrina. Like,
I believe it was Andrew.
No. The what it's saying is that the only other hurricane deadlier than Helene over the past 60 years was Camille. Hurricane Camille hit in 1969, and the numbers, it says a study out this week found hurricanes were linked to thousands of deaths over the 15 years following the event because of these things that people are living through. The flash flooding, like you have no idea the germs, the fungus, the bacteria, the nastiness in some of this water. And combine, or even it being just regular ocean water. Yeah, ocean water, it's a soup. Okay, it's got life, it's got plants, it's got
microplastics.
Salt, it's got microplastics. Because let's face it, we throw more garbage into our waters than should be humanly possible, but it is apparently. But yeah, great water, great for the skin, whatever. But combining water with stuff that's on our roads, stuff that we use in our gardens, stuff coming out of our vehicles, like you're talking lithium-ion batteries.
Well, I'll even put
acid,
it like this.
Like,
it's
terrible shit.
So you talked about things on the medical side. When I was in the military, I was a part of I was trained, and my job was called an aerographer's mate. In other words, I was a weatherman. You know, I studied meteorology, studied oceanography, stuff like that.
He got to watch icebergs on the
Well,
screen.
that was where I was stationed at. But the thing with hurricanes is we get storms that come ripping through our different areas, and depending on what part of the country you're from, they can get pretty severe. With severe thunderstorms, and you have hail and torrential downpours. You have microbursts and macrobursts. Which microbursts and macrobursts are some of the scariest things. Imagine a column of air descending upon the surface of the planet at a high rate of speed, and when it impacts into the surface, I've seen a microburst, like footage of a microburst, wipe out a town because it hit and it just took everything out. Granted, the town, I believe, was a ghost town at that time because I didn't see any vehicles moving around in there. But like it hit and all the buildings got knocked over, like in the town itself. They're scary. However, I get asked this question not frequently. I used to get it asked more frequently. But what's more dangerous? A tornado or a hurricane? Here's my answer, and the answer that I've told everybody. They're both equally dangerous, but in two different ways. A tornado is more like a precision shot, because the tornado touches down in one area and it snakes its way, but everything along that path is ripped to shreds, right? It's like, if you're a gun enthusiast, it's like firing a rifle. You have that precise where this was, and you can follow the path directly, right? A hurricane, on the other hand, is more area of effect. Going back to the gun thing, it's more like buckshot or birdshot. It covers a lot of area and it messes things up. Depending on the severity of the storm, it could be something, it could be just a tropical depression, which is fancy talk for it's a really powerful storm system that used to be a hurricane.
Thunderstorm.
Well, it's more powerful. It's more powerful than your standard thunderstorm because it's a cluster of storms that go ripping up through an area, right? To a Category 5 hurricane, which covers hundreds of miles, and
it can cover states.
Yeah, the one I believe when Helene hit. When it made landfall, I believe it was only a Category 3. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was still, it was about the midway point. The amount of wind damage just wind damage alone, because Category 3 storms spin fast. It was a Category 4? Oh, so it was almost the highest one. Category 4 storms spin faster. The category...
Katrina was a Category 5.
So categories are... When it comes to the definition of a hurricane, categories are split into two different sections. You have wind speed, and it's not the wind speed of, the major part of the storm. It's the wind speed right around the eye of the storm. And size. The bigger a hurricane is, typically the faster the wind speed is. So therefore, you have more damage just due to wind. But what you don't realize at the moment is that wind is bringing stuff with it.
Okay, so the three hurricanes that I talked about, Katrina, or let's start from the top. Camille was a Category 5, Katrina was a Category 5, and Helene was a Category 4.
But it brings stuff with it. We're talking ocean water. We're talking rainwater. We're talking debris.
Sharknado?
No, that's a tornado. And that is so impossibly dumb because when a tornado is on the water, it's not called a tornado, it's a water spout.
Water spout.
And by the time it makes landfall, the sharks are dead. Anyways. Now, what you had said is true. You know, salt water, ocean water, not that big of a problem until you stop to think about something. Salt water does not mix with fresh water.
And humans are disgusting.
Okay. There is actually along the coast where rivers will feed into the ocean. There is a break. Like you can tell where the fresh water ends and the ocean water begins because there's a line right there. It's called brine. It's where the fresh water and the ocean water are being forcibly mixed to become salt water. But freshwater creatures such as fish and birds and frogs and all of that, they can't live and support themselves in salt water. They die or they move out of the area. That's another impact that it has is wildlife. It's not just humans that are affected. It's the wildlife, the plants, the creatures, all of that. They're not used to all this salt water. They're used to, regular rain, freshwater stuff. And so that has an effect on it too. Not to mention, building supplies and all that. So like inner parts of Georgia, they ain't used to fucking salt water. I mean, for the most part, Georgia ain't used to salt water because it doesn't have a coast. However, with this hurricane that came through and is pulling all of this salt water up, it is affecting Georgians because in other ways other than the wind damage. But because of the salt water that is being, no pun intended, rained down upon them, and it's mixing, and it's going to affect the pH levels. It's going to affect the plants. And it's going to affect the animals. Because of this influx of water that they're not used to. Then you got to look at the coast itself. I mean, when a hurricane comes in, and you have all the stuff, you have the rain and you have the wind, and yay, all that. That's not all of it. Because where it makes landfall on the coast creates storm surges. And that is think of it like a mini tidal wave. It brings water up way past where the normal tide is at. So we build roads and we build houses, a certain distance away from these coastlines because it's like, oh, this place is a good spot to build. Until a storm surge happens. And all of that gets fucked. And so there's not only there's even more damage and water damage included on all this. These storms have the capability of destroying or severely affecting areas that are right on the coast, and even some that aren't even close, that are miles away from the coast. And this is a time where, there's a couple of people I watch on YouTube. They're like, hey, we're going to go down to these affected areas and we're going to help out. I've seen pictures and videos, short little snippets of, people with, what is it, FEMA? I think that's what it's called. Unable to get into certain areas because the roads are washed out.
Basically emergency management.
Yeah,
FEMA.
whatever, yeah.
It's called FEMA. It's Federal Emergency Management something.
But they're unable to get into certain areas because the roads are washed out or they have debris on them, and so they can't drive. So they're, horse, donkeys, dirt bikes, ATVs, UTVs, They're taking all these alternate ways of getting supplies to these people and still trying to clean up the roads. That way the bulk of it can get to someplace faster. And, unfortunately, that's the sad part about this is sometimes it takes a disaster, whether it's natural or man-made, in order to pull people together to help other people. And it's sad. I mean, I hate it.
People talk about following the Bible. The Bible says this, the Bible says that. Well, guess what? You're not following one of the basic principles in the Bible. Love thy neighbor as thyself.
No. Anyways. So yeah, I mean, like, this storm system is going to affect people for years to come, and it's not just affecting the people themselves, but it's also going to affect the land.
It's also going to affect the animals and
It's part
like,
of the land.
You know what I mean? Like pets.
Yeah.
I mean, people lost everything. And whereas, like you said, I'm glad people are coming together, but it shouldn't take a storm to bring people together.
It really shouldn't.
I mean, we say it every week. Don't forget to love each other. And that's the God's honest truth. Like, it should not take a storm or a problem that's affecting hundreds, sometimes thousands of lives to bring people together. It really does take a village. And it should be the case all the time, not just, oh, we've got a major storm coming in. I'm going to be all nice to my neighbor now. No, that's not how this works.
To those people who, may have lost family members to this, you have our condolences. To those people who lost track of somebody or they can't get a hold of somebody, I hope that you are able to reach out to them and find out that they're okay. To those friends that I have down in that area, I hope y'all are all right.
Family we have in that area.
Yeah, I hope you guys are okay.
I mean, my aunt and uncle were posting pictures on their Facebook page about what happened, and they live in Charlotte. And their beautiful lawn, their pool wasn't destroyed, but it was damaged. Like, brand new deck that my Uncle Donnie built.
Should probably call my parents.
Yeah. And your mom was posting pictures and stuff on Facebook, but it wasn't of anything major, and they live pretty close to the coast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we have family out there, and we understand wholeheartedly what it's like to be in a situation where you're like, is this person okay? Do I call them? Do I text them? Do I wait for them to message me? Like, it's in the back of your head, and I will be the first to admit I'm terrible about checking in on my family.
Yeah.
And I am trying to get better about it. And it's like, I don't want to seem like, oh, that's the only thing I care about is when something's going on and everything. And it's just like, I want to check on them, but I don't want to seem like that's all I care about is making sure they're still alive after a storm.
Well, I mean,
I love and care about them all the time, but especially when something like that happens.
Yeah.
The ones that I have checked on is Tiffany and Taylor, my two younger cousins, who both have families, who both have young kids.
I've reached out to one of my friends that is down there. I haven't heard anything from her yet, but it could just be that they're, in a pickle, or
there's still people without power and water. Yeah. That's first on their priority.
Yep. So, I'll try again at some point and make sure that they're okay. But yeah, it's bad, guys. If there is any sort of charity or place that you want to...
I know Red Cross is doing a lot of donations like they usually do. They usually take a lot of donations. I personally don't like to donate to Red Cross because their CEO makes way more than a person that's the head of a charity should be making.
But there are organizations out
church
there,
groups, local organizations.
There are people that are doing it for.
If y'all are listening and want to leave a comment letting people know local charities in your area that they could donate to help with the storm efforts, that would be great.
Yep.
So drop those names in that comment section. I know we don't ever ask for donations because that's not what we're about. You can if you want, but I would rather you donate to an organization to help people.
Yep. So I did look up something going back to our first story because it just got me curious. I looked up the surface area difference between Rhode Island and Mount Everest. Mount Everest has a total area of over 1,500 square kilometers or 580 square miles. Versus Rhode Island, which has a land area of 1,033.6 square miles and a water area of 510.9 square miles for a total surface area of 1,545 square miles.
I think more so the size, height wise, and
Mount Everest. So Mount Everest, I looked that up. Feet wise, Mount Everest is about 29,000 feet. Is about 5 miles tall. Going north to south, Rhode Island is, I think it said 49 miles in length and about 38-ish miles in width. So going east to west.
Yeah.
So Rhode Island is bigger.
Yeah, movies like
Creative freedom.
Yeah, Everest is also all stone.
Granite, I believe.
Like
I might be
stone
wrong.
and dirt and trees and yeah.
Corpses of dead people. Anyways.
Frozen dead people.
Yeah. Anyways.
Did you know they don't bring them down off the mountain if they're frozen solid?
There's countless bodies up there.
Want to move on?
Yeah.
Your turn.
If you guys are more, dealing, you have Wi-Fi or internet, and you've noticed here recently that something's been a little funky, there's a reason for that. And it's because, according to Earth.com, strong solar storm warning issued as 2 CMEs will hit Earth tomorrow. And that was published yesterday. So it says, get ready, Skywatchers and tech enthusiasts. The Space Weather Prediction Center has issued G3 strong geomagnetic storm alerts for October 4th through the 6th of this year. This alert comes as 2 coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, are expected to make their way to Earth this weekend. For those who don't know, a geomagnetic storm occurs when solar wind, a stream of charged particles from the sun, collides with Earth's magnetic fields. This is what happens when you get auroras, especially up in the northern part, northern and southern.
Northern lights.
The northern lights and the southern lights. These storms can disrupt satellite operations, GPS systems, and even some power grids. While they're fascinating to observe, strong geomagnetic storms can have significant impacts with our daily lives. Let's see here. A massive solar flare erupted from the sun on Thursday morning, sending waves of charged particles toward the Earth. This powerful burst of solar energy has scientists and space weather experts keeping a close eye on potential effects here on our planet, including auroras expected in the lower part of the United States. Experts at the Space Weather Prediction Center reported that a flare classified as an X9.0 occurred at 8:18 a.m. Eastern Time on October 3rd. This comes just days after another significant flare from the same region of the sun, known as Active Region 3842. Solar flares are intense bursts of radiation stemming from the release of magnetic energy associated with sunspots. An X-class flare is among the most potent, capable of causing significant disturbances to Earth's magnetosphere, which can affect satellite operations, communications, and even power grids. The recent X 9.0 flare is notable because it is one of the strongest we've ever seen in this solar cycle. For context, only an X 8.7 flare on May 14th, 2024 surpassed it in intensity. Solar activity has reached high levels with 6 M-class flares and 1 X-class flare. The X 9.0 occurred at 8:08 from region 3842. So pretty much what these are is a solar flare comes from sunspots, which are hot spots on the surface of the sun. It's like the separation.
The whole sun is hot.
Well, some parts will be hotter on the surface, and some spots will be cooler on the surface. And a sunspot, I believe, I'm gonna double check this just because I don't want to be wrong. Solar flares can mess up. They interact with the magnetosphere, which the magnetosphere is one of those things. It protects Earth from having to deal with the magnetic radiation coming from the sun. Think of it like a water balloon, right? Where the water inside the balloon is the Earth, and there's just a thin layer wrap of energy and pretty much the magnetic force of the planet on the outside of it, right? If we didn't, we'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. If we
Our
didn't have
protective layer.
If we didn't have the magnetosphere, anytime something like this would happen, the Earth would get cooked.
This world is a dumpster fire.
Pretty much. So a sunspot is a cooler region on the sun caused by a concentration of magnetic field lines. So it's like a low, if you're talking like weather, it is a low, oh God, what am I thinking? A low storm center, or a low pressure system. That's what I was looking for. Whereas the rest of the sun is a high pressure center, right? Solar flares will happen right at the edge of that because the cooler air, or the cooler part of the sun, interacts with the hotter part of the sun, which creates these flares that come up and over, and they're beautiful to see. Like, I've seen some of the images that we've been able to capture of a solar flare, and they're beautiful. It's like loops of energy and fire erupting from the sun. However, one of the many laws of physics, there's an equal and opposite reaction. What caused that flare, what caused that loop to erupt from the sun is going to continue to spread through the universe. And there are times where it hits Earth is right in its path. And that's when we get these solar flares that affect us. And they cause, like, the aurora borealis to act up. And in this instance, these flares are expected to be able to hit the Earth and excite the ionosphere and the magnetic sphere to the point where we can see this aurora borealis, these northern lights, down where we're at, which is rare. But it can affect, like, Wi-Fi, and it can affect power, and it can affect satellite communications, GPS. So, like, you can try to pull up GPS and it just won't fucking work because of this radiation that's hitting these satellites. They're not protected from the radiation. They're taking the full brunt of it. And it can knock out satellites and all that, which can cause issues for a multitude of things, whether it's civilian or military. You know, it can affect all this kind of stuff. They're scary. They're beautiful. Take your pick. I personally think they're terrifyingly beautiful, because on one hand, to see the sun react the way that it does and see the natural like splitting of atoms on the surface of the sun is awe inspiring.
It's fascinating to you.
It really is.
And I can listen to you talk about it for days.
But then hearing about the energy that comes off of it, the magnetic radiation that comes off of it, that, like I said, if we didn't have the magnetic sphere or the ionosphere, it would cook the planet. It is terrifying to know that if we didn't have this, if this world didn't have this layer of invisible protection, the atmosphere would ignite, the land, the surface of the planet would ignite and melt. Any and all, human life or animal life would just drop dead in an instant. It would be like taking the earth and putting it in a microwave, and we'd just be dead. So it's, if you're noticing that you're having some problems, check with your service provider. If they're like, yeah, there's no issues, then just know we're just going through a solar flare. There's nothing that they can do. There's no need to yell and scream. It's just fucking happens. So.
Yeah.
That's it? That's all you have?
No, it's just, it's fascinating to not have the understanding like you do with events like this.
The understanding that I have, don't get it twisted, the understanding that I have is very minimal.
But you like looking into these things and research and all that, whereas I'm more focused on stars and planets, and whereas the sun is a star, it doesn't fascinate me as much as you, but I like that you are enthusiastic about something like this. And don't get me wrong, I'm fascinated by it too. There are some things that you've said today about, that invisible layer of protection that we have that's like, I never really realized that that's literally the only thing standing in between us and certain death. And it is frightening. Because with people talking about the hole in the ozone layer.
Which is actually fixed, by the way.
It fixed itself.
Yep.
But, what if there was a hole?
We stopped doing the stupid shit and look what fucking happened. Anyways.
Could you imagine if there was a hole in that magnetic protection layer?
Oh, we'd be fucked.
We'd be fucked.
Because here's the thing about radiation. You don't need to be bathed in it. You can be protected. But even just a small hole will affect the entire thing.
Yeah, damage to part of it is going to affect the whole.
Yeah. And the thing with it is the sun, the planets, the solar system, the universe, the different universes, they all fascinate me because, you have a religious viewpoint of where did all this come from? And then you have the scientific thing of where did all this come from? And the difference between the two is just fascinating, because if you go off of the religious side, there's a creator. They said, hey, this shit's here. Ta-da, it's here. But if you go off the scientific thing of it, you can't create something from nothing. Then where did this all come from? And it's pinpointing that start. Personal opinion here, it's a combination of the two. There was a creator that said, hey, start. And so everything got started, and then the Big Bang happened, and then that's how we got here. Like, it's not... Religion and science is two sides of the same coin. You know, or two parts of the same dice.
One can't exist without the other.
Incorrect. They can exist without each other. However, to have the balance, you need both. And everything has a balance to it. Where there is life, there is death. Where there is water, there is earth. Where there's land, there's sky. You know, good and evil. Where there's destruction, there's creation. You know, where there's known, there's the unknown. Everything has a balance to it. And that's the way that the universe in itself works. And all it cares about is the balance. And when there's an imbalance in one, it's going to do what it has to fix that balance. You know, but it's fascinating to see like stuff like this. Now, I wish that we knew as much about our own ocean as we do about space. Just personally, I'd rather know what's here first than what the fuck's going on up there.
Sometimes I don't want to know what's going on in our own oceans.
Oh, I
have
do.
You seen some of the frightening shit that they've discovered?
Oh, yeah, it's great. We can talk more about that on the last episode of the month where we have our Halloween special.
Mariana's Trench.
Oh, I'm talking
that
more...
That would be exploration.
I'm talking more other places.
That'd be kind of cool.
Anyways. But yeah, it's fascinating to me that we know more about space and how space works than what the fuck's at the bottom of our oceans.
I think because, ironically, space is more accessible.
It is. I mean, you go up into space, like once you breach Earth's orbit and the atmosphere and the gravitational pull, like there is no atmosphere in space. Versus, you start delving into the ocean.
High pressures and
you get
submersibles that try to go down the Titanic and kill everybody on board because it collapses on itself.
Because that is millions of... It's almost like...
It's millions of pounds of pressure per square inch.
Think of it like this. That is an atmosphere being pushed upon you. An atmosphere of pressure being put upon you. Our atmosphere is a shitload of weight. Like the Earth is heavy in itself, right? But the atmosphere just adds fucking to it. Now,
gravity is what makes you weigh as much as you do.
Gravity makes you weigh, but the atmosphere keeps you held down or keeps things weighted to an extent. Right? Imagine having, like, you take a column of air, a column straight up from you, right? From you up to outer space, right?
Okay.
And you take all of that and you make it the size of a pancake. And you put that little pancake on your head.
You did.
Yeah. Because of all of that weight. Now, that's what it's like going down into the ocean, is you're having atmospheres placed upon you. And you can only go so far because then you die. Like what happened with the rich people that went to go look at the Titanic. Here's another way I'll put it. The deepest depths of our ocean is deeper than the highest heights of our mountains. Mount Everest fits perfectly into the Marianas Trench, and the trench still has room.
Yep, still has height.
Well, depth.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
But like
Marianas Trench, if you put Everest at the bottom of Marianas Trench would still have miles of ocean above.
Yeah, like the deepest part of our planet is deeper than the tallest part of our planet. Like, that's fucking scary. And we don't know what's down there.
I personally don't want to know what's down there.
I would love to know. But
You don't like spooky things.
I don't like spooky things. Correct. I don't like horror. However, there is still that...
Curiosity killed the cat moment.
Yeah, but satisfaction brought it back.
Yeah.
I want that satisfaction. I'm not dead yet. I want to know what's at the bottom.
No matter how rich we are, you are not allowed to go on an oceanic exploration that goes down to the depths of an ocean.
You really think I'm going to fucking fit in any of that shit? Come on.
You will.
Not.
Once you lose weight.
Once I get compressed into, nothing because of the atmosphere on me.
You'd weigh more at the bottom of it.
I'd also be a lot flatter.
Yes.
I would look like, you remember those old Tom and Jerry cartoons where Tom gets he runs into the door and all you see is him just
Roadrunner cartoons,
waddling around,
Coyote.
flat with legs. That would be me. Flat with legs. Just
I can imagine that. Is that bad?
I would look like a table.
Yeah.
Anyways. No, it's just, I'm curious. I want to know what's at the bottom.
What's that one flat fish? It almost
Flounder?
looks like... No, it almost looks like a stingray. The eyes are on the top, the mouth is on the bottom. But it's I don't know if it's considered a shark or a fish. But it's really flat and thin, and that's what you would look like.
I don't know. I don't study fish. I am not a marine biologist. I am just a simple guy who has a vested interest in figuring out what the fuck's at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. I want to know. I need to know.
You're not allowed to go down there.
I wasn't planning on it.
Send some other moron down there.
I have an idea of who.
No.
Oh. Anyways. Well, I think this is a good place to call it. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. If you are listening to us on Spotify and you want to show Spotify that you're enjoying what you're hearing, hit the download button. That lets them know, and they let us know, and we go ahead and work harder to put out a new show and a better show for you each and every time. If you would like to donate, like we said earlier, we would prefer you donate to these different organizations to help the people that are affected by the remnants of Hurricane Helene, or Helene, however it's pronounced. If you would like to donate to the show, however, we do have a link in the description. Any donations that we get this week are going to be going toward an organization that we're going to find. And once we find one, we're going to let y'all, we'll let y'all know via Blue Sky and, all of that. But there's going to be a link in the description if you want to donate. But anyways, as always, thank y'all so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to love each other. And as always, remember...
Don't be a dick.
All right, bye.
Bye.